It is July 8th at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and you are on Shally's Alley. Today I have a very special guest coming to me from literally the other side of the world. Well, maybe not the entire other side of the world, but pretty close to as far as you could get from where we are. Van Raath is currently in Joburg. Are you in Joburg?
Yeah, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And you're from born and raised there.
Born and raised in Durban, South Africa, but in South
Okay.
Africa. Yeah. Lived overseas for 12 years, so got quite a bit of international exposure, which I'm very grateful for. Never regret that time out of the country, but good to be home.
Yeah, and it's like 7 p.m. for you on a Friday night. Thank you so much
It is
for
indeed.
sharing your time with us here. I'm sure you
No,
got a
no
lot of other
stress.
things you could be doing on 7 p.m. on a Friday night.
But it is winter, so you caught me at a good time.
That's right. For folks that don't realize that, it's the opposite season there.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's cold and it's dark and it's chilly outside. So I restricted myself to half a glass of wine with dinner, and let's go with it now.
That's right. So you guys do Christmas in July?
You know what we actually do? The 25th of July is quite a big thing to do Christmas in July here in South Africa, because it's nice, because then it feels like Christmas. It's nice and chilly,
It feels wintry.
It's dark.
Yeah,
It feels wintry. You can actually have a cooked meal, because on the actual Christmas day, we boiling hot. We spend most of the day in the swimming pool, and we normally have a barbecue of sorts.
Right,
'cause
right.
It's the
You
middle
want
of
to be
summer.
cooling off. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Vanessa and I met, I think, face to face for the first time at was it the conference in Amsterdam?
I think it was probably SourceCon in Seattle, because I
SourceCon in
haven't.
Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the. Yeah, I think that was probably the last time that I was stateside. I'm hoping to be back in October, actually, as a little bit of a statement that I'm going to be there. I am pretty much trying to get out and see conferences as much as possible. I was in London last
It's nice
week.
to kind of get back to that, huh?
Yeah, and meet people in real life. It just makes such a difference.
Yeah, it does. So folks who might not know Vanessa Van, she's been in the industry for roughly about 15 years
Yep.
or so. Mostly the majority of that, about 10 years of that, in technology.
Mm-hmm.
She's been to multiple conferences and does a lot of speaking, has a training business, and does keynote presentations. So if you're interested in hiring a trainer or a keynote speaker for one of your events, you can.
Yep. Look me up.
That's right. You can connect with her. I'm gonna put your scroller here.
Excellent. Thank you very
at
much.
Vanessa Raath with 2 A's. Raath.
Yeah. That's the German coming out, believe it or not.
Yep. So I wanted to talk a little bit about global sourcing, or at least having a global point of view, a global perspective. This is a question that is asked of me a lot, and I don't want to be the only one that answers this question. So I'm gonna pose it to you. Does a sourcer need to know the local language in order to source in that region of the world? So for example, I live in the US, and I'm sourcing for roles in China, and do I need to speak Chinese to source in China or whatever?
So put it this way, my answer would be no. You wouldn't need to learn how to speak Chinese, but if you did, it would be to your advantage. But like, for example, myself, I source all over the world. I pretty much find in every single country that English is the business language. So,
Yep.
for example, South Africa, we have 11 official languages. It's ridiculous. It really is the rainbow nation, the melting pot. But everyone speaks English because that is our business
Because that's
language.
the common language there. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can get by, and I have got by in the past. So I did a big project in Nigeria and Ghana last year, and one of the things that I learned to use really well was Google Translate. So you
Right.
just have to pick up a couple of key terms. So in my outreach messages, I made sure that I got the right greeting, the right salutation, a couple of key comments, either have a good weekend in a native language, and that worked like a treat. So I don't think you need to, especially if the role requirements require someone to be able to speak English, you've got to try and ascertain, the level of communication in that language too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the short answer is you do not need to speak the
No.
local language or be fluent in the local language to source there, which is
Yeah.
that's definitely the answer that I commonly give, because
Good.
as you
Same
said, you
page.
can translate, right? So
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and a tip I would give when I do my training on international sourcing, a tip that I always give them is the translation. So even though Google's translate algorithm has gotten significantly better, and it does give you a choice between two or three possible variations of the word, I would always double check with
Yes.
a native speaker on the keywords that you're using. Not talking about the outreach. You should have the outreach properly translated. But if you're going to do outreach, for example, in Germany, it's proper to have the German and the English and have it really well translated. But when you're going to do searches, have a local take a look at the keywords, because sometimes it translates to a word that means the same thing but isn't the same thing on a resume or a CV.
Yeah, absolutely,
So
Shally. And another good trick is download the app on your smartphone called Google Translate, because I use that a lot to like scan symbols and things that people maybe put on their profiles, put on their CVs. Because what it
mhm,
does is it will translate directly when I put my phone's camera onto the symbol directly into the English what
it's like a
this might
universal
mean.
language translator.
Yes.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
right.
especially if you're going to be traveling a lot, we don't always travel to the most normal places. You
That's
can
right.
also, I walk around the airport scanning signs, am I
Scan
getting on the
signs. Yeah,
right
where am I
train?
going? Is this the
Exactly.
train or the
Where's the
airplane?
bathroom?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, so for sourcing, just have that keyword checked, because even the translators, they'll give you the correct translation, which might not be the one. A common example that I've seen is people trying to source in Spanish and not speaking Spanish, and they translate resume to resumen, which is accurate, but nobody uses that. It's
Okay.
and by the way, in different countries, in Mexico they call it something else, hoja de
Okay.
vida, for example, versus resumen, and in other countries they actually use currículo as in curriculum. So you also want to do that
Yeah.
regionalization. Um,
Yeah. And get that colloquialism in as well. So
exactly,
it
that's
sounds
right.
more real, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll end up sourcing for the wrong stuff. So that's a
Disaster.
big one. So there, check the box. All right, you do not need to be polyglot to be able to source in that country.
Yeah.
Outreach being a completely different question. Um, Now, here's the other thing that I was going to ask you: how do
Yes.
you handle all of the uh, rules and legalities? Because, for example, in the United States, we have California privacy rules, and the rest of
Mm-hmm.
the country
Mm-hmm.
applies. In Europe, there's GDPR, but
Yes.
GDPR is interpreted differently in Germany. It's
Yes.
still GDPR, but it's differently interpreted in Germany, and it doesn't apply to some countries because they're not part of the agreement. And
Yes.
then you go to uh, other parts of the world, in Africa and Asia. It's all these different. So how do you,
Yeah.
when you're sourcing, keep all that together? What do you do?
So this might not be the correct answer that everybody should be following, but to be honest with you, it's so difficult to keep up with all the different laws in different countries. South Africa's just introduced the Poppy Act. I kind of do what I need to do, and if I get into trouble, I ask for forgiveness or plead ignorance. I've just found that it's something that I'm aware of GDPR. I've done my homework on it. I know how it works. I know how it works in Germany. Germany is also, very different way that people operate and recruit. They're not big into
Yep.
building online brands and things like that. So I think it's also understanding the country and the country's nuances at the time. So for me, it's something that I'm aware of. I'm very careful. I'm very respectful. And I'm also not one of those people who start my outreaches with, hey, this is where I saw your profile. I saw you on LinkedIn. And, it's kind of like, I saw you were presenting at this conference, and then sending the person the email. And I think if you actually tailor your message, you blow smoke in the right direction, people aren't even going to worry about where you found their email address, especially if it's a friendly reach out. And I never really start talking about the opportunity in the first reach out. So I think it's all about the way that you're approaching people. Are you being a human being? Are you looking to, grow your network as opposed to always just trying to recruit people?
So, in other words, to translate, I'm your universal translator. Essentially, what you're saying is, um, plead for forgiveness, which is really not inaccurate. I mean, you're not pleading; it's accurate. You may be
Yeah.
aware of the laws, but you're not going to be a privacy attorney in every country that you operate in. So
Yep.
operate given what you know are common standards that would be expected and respected worldwide. Which is, just operate with decency and treat people with dignity.
Yeah.
And then if you step over a line, then you can, okay, great, thank you for educating me, and
Yeah.
not get
Exactly.
into an argument with the person and say, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me, because so that's usually what I'll do is
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, hey, I would never want to do that intentionally. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Basically,
Exactly. Ask for
yeah,
forgiveness of it.
exactly. So it comes down to, we are in the business. This is a business communication, okay? And I think a lot of times folks get their feelings kind of mixed into it because of words like spam, and GDPR and other privacy rules out there are there to protect consumers from abuses in privacy that are done for commercial profit, right? And honestly, when you're a corporate, if you are a corporate recruiter representing a corporate entity, this is really not a commercial enterprise in the same interpretation as somebody trying to sell you a car or somebody trying to sell you services. We're really not
Absolutely.
selling, right? It's a business communication. So it would be no different than other business communications, which gives us a little bit of wiggle room, right? I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah.
we have free reign,
Free
but
reign. Yeah.
but when I'm reaching out to somebody and asking them if they might potentially be interested in an opportunity, it's a genuine business communication. It's not a marketing thing, right? So sometimes people get that confused, especially because I hear a lot of leaders and at the pulpit banging their heads. Recruiting is like marketing. Recruiting is like sales. Recruiting is like recruiting. It's not like marketing. It's not like sales. We're not something else that got turned into. Recruiting's been around long before sales and marketing. Recruiting is the oldest profession in the universe. Okay, so it's not like marketing. It's not like sales. And honestly, it's business to business. It's B2B. It's not B2C. That's the difference.
And I think it's about your wording and your outreach. I mean, that's a big thing about what I train on, is that it's all well and good to be able to find that, that rocket scientist and all those unicorns or whatever it is that you're looking for and finding their contact details. But if you're sending a crappy outreach, that's when they start getting upset and saying, oh, here I am. I've got a templated message written over here. There's no personalization. How do I know that this was for me? And then candidates start throwing things around like, how did you get my details? Do you not know about GDPR? But if you're actually emailing them, you're being a human being, you're being personable, you've actually got a better career offer for them than what they're actually doing. With
or maybe
more
not,
financial
they have
gain.
a chance to consider, right? So they
Yes,
reply, yeah,
exactly.
I'm interested. No, I'm not interested. Yeah.
Exactly. So for me, it's about, I don't know, just going the extra mile and not being lazy in your reach out, because I've seen that a lot of the negative responses are coming from people who are lazy in their reach out.
Right. The responses are going back to someone who was kind of haphazard in their outreach. Yeah.
But just another thing, going back to your laws in different countries. I mean, there's so many organizations at the moment that actually take that third party role. So, I mean, I do a lot of sourcing through Africa. I'm very lucky. I seem to have developed a bit of a persona as the go-to sourcer in Africa. And Africa's got wonderful talent. We really and truly do. I mean, I think it's the next big thing in the tech space, because everywhere else in the world is battling to find tech talent, but Africa is quite an untapped market. And there are, organizations, companies that are set up that handle all of those legalities. So they'll handle all the company, the country tax, the personal tax. Is the person paying for medical if they need to or not? And I think that that's going to take a lot of pressure off for a lot of companies, because
PEOs,
they're going to pay.
I think they're called. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, it's like
PEOs.
a third part. Yeah, I'm not too sure what the official name is. I can give you the name of a couple
It's
of
a
companies
professional employment organization, PEO. They're the employer of record that handles all the, taxes,
The
payroll,
legalities
legalities,
and
etc. And then
everything.
they essentially, like, the person is like contracted to you through that PEO,
Contract or
what it
permanent to
does
the PEO.
exactly.
And that makes life easier for everyone, doesn't it?
That's
So
right, because as a
it's
small
far
business, you
more.
couldn't set up offices in, every if you want to have if you want to recruit people in, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Singapore, now you have to support three offices and three attorneys, and but the PEO can
Yeah,
handle that for you. Yeah, that's a good
exactly.
way to
So
do
I
it.
mean, I think that that's really a great way of making like global talent far more accessible.
More
So I think
accessible.
it's
Yeah,
definitely something that can be done, with these PEOs setting up and giving us the option in order to do so, because not everyone wants to move around the world. A lot of people are
right,
very happy or can't move around the world. Passport
right.
restrictions. Some countries are more difficult to get into. Some people are wanting to
Plus,
move to certain countries. At the moment, there's a lot of people not wanting to move to certain countries because of what's happening. It's unsettling.
plus the cost. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
So
Mm,
another question that I had for you, if you don't mind,
sure.
and this is a little tricky, so it's okay if you want to punt on this one. I totally get it. In your experience, in all your international travels and all your international sourcing in different countries and teaching, sourcing and all that, is there any one country or region that you find is the most difficult to source in because people are, let's just say, less online or less visible or whatever? And I'm not saying necessarily for privacy reasons or for whatever reason, whatever the reason may
Mm.
be. Is there a region in the world where sourcing is really hard compared to other regions in the world, or is it just kind of depends on the
Yeah,
industry, depends on the role?
absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many variables to that question, but I mean, I think you've also got to know where to look. Like, for example, if you're looking in the US, one of my go-to platforms is Twitter because it's so popular.
Mhm.
But if I'm looking in New Zealand, like Twitter's not really that popular, not that widely used.
But they use something
Um,
else, so it's not hard to
so you've
find
got to
people. Right.
exactly. So
Got
you've got to have, but you've got to know what that something
know
else
where to
is.
go. Right.
Exactly. Like US, very popular LinkedIn users. 56, 57% of your population. South Africa, we've got 16% of our population on LinkedIn. And that's why South African recruiters are very good sources of talent because they can't just rely on a platform like LinkedIn, you know.
Right.
So for me, probably the most difficult country that I've ever had to go and source in is probably actually China and Russia, because I don't find that these people have very much interest in developing online brands, online profiles. You've got to look in different places and you've almost got to network your way around those countries. Those have been my two most challenging ones, where everywhere else is not really about the country, it's about what is the preferred platform in that
Right.
country. So, for
Right.
example,
So as a
Ghana,
geography, Russia and Germany
yeah,
have just
oh,
universally far less online content that you can source from.
yeah. And also,
Yeah.
you've got the language barrier,
Mhm.
which is a problem. Very little English spoken in those regions. Um, So yeah, for me, it is a bit of a sweeping statement, but that has been some of the most difficult,
That's what I was asking for, and
region.
it's exactly the same experience.
Is it? I was
Uh,
about to ask you, what have you found? What
yeah,
did
it's
you
the
answer
same.
that
It's the same
question?
experience. So if I had to answer the question a little bit differently, finding wise, definitely China and Russia,
Yeah.
because of the dispersion of information into so many different places, not like a
Mm-hmm.
single concentration of information in any one area
Mm-hmm.
that is relevant to, at least that I found. That's one part of the. And then the other part is, of course, there's a certain aversion to being online. It's and it's not a privacy thing. It's
Yeah.
um, it's just
Maybe it's
people
just
are
this the human nature in
they're
those
just not
places.
sharing. They're not. It's not culture where they're sharing
Yeah.
online as much as in other countries. But I would say from a different point of view, which is outreach, Japan.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Easy to find. I mean, almost everybody is online. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want to say everyone's online in Japan, but like it's a very
A lot of people.
technologically, yeah. So and there's so much going on,
Yeah.
but the challenge isn't finding them. The challenge there is engaging them because culturally, um, it is considered, and this may be shifting nowadays, but it is considered dishonorable to be approached by a recruiter directly from the company. It is more honorable to be approached by a third party.
Oh,
So like
go
a
the agency
negotiator.
recruiters.
It's not necessarily an agency as much as it's like it's almost like I respect you more if I'm negotiating for both parties versus I'm from this party trying to negotiate with you.
Okay,
Like it's like this
super
perception of
interesting.
whether or not it may or may not be neutral. You may or may not be neutral, but the perception that you're sort of representing both parties elevates the status of the candidate. It gives them more face. So when you reach out, what I found is that you have to position it that way. Otherwise, they are a lot less likely to respond.
Wow, interesting.
Like a lot
So,
less likely.
so I did a project recently in Japan, and I actually did a bit of research around the platforms and what's really popular there. And I was surprised to see that they were the second biggest users of Twitter behind the US.
Mhm.
And that blew my mind. I never would have put Japan in second place there, but they in second place by quite a long way, I believe. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So it's they're culturally more available online and easier to find, but then
mm.
culturally less available to responding. And then the other thing that I found is in France, if your message in France and in French-speaking Canada, if your message is not in French, they won't respond.
Okay, I could
E-
believe that.
Even though, where they might, but I mean, just generally speaking, even though the language requirement for the job is English, and it's an
Okay.
international job, and it's a international company, so it's like you cannot do this job if you are not fluent in English. Period.
Yeah.
Still, the message needs to be in French. Now, what they usually like is that it's in French than English,
Okay. Okay.
but French
That's
first.
quite. But that, yeah, wow, that's quite interesting. But I can believe it from the French Canadian side, from a couple of people that I've met in that part of
Right?
the world.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
like if it's in French, great. And even if you even if it's a bad attempt at French, better than English
better than
only.
nothing at all.
Yeah. And the other thing that I
Okay.
found in Russia is this is really strange, and I haven't validated this in a couple of years. But the subject line needs to be in English, even though the message is in Russian.
Wow. Okay.
And this was practice and trial and error that we discovered it because we tried Russian character Cyrillic language subject lines and they didn't work. And I finally broke down and had to ask somebody that replied to one of my emails, like, hey, I'm curious, my subject line was in English but the body of the message was in Russian. Usually we don't get a lot of responses when the subject line is in Russian. Can you tell me why? And this person said, simple, all of the Russian emails with Russian subject lines are spam.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
Version of them trying to buy
what?
crypto.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh my God, I never thought. Obviously, it's a sweeping, it's not all of them, but like they just
Yeah.
associate Cyrillic subject lines
Yeah.
in a business in your inbox at work to be spam.
Sure.
So they
Sure.
don't even bother
Interesting.
opening it. Yeah, I was like,
So,
wow, that is weird.
So I had a similar situation sourcing in Africa here when I was sourcing across Ghana and Nigeria. And Twi is a popular language that is spoken there as, a local language. But Nigerian Twi is different to Ghanaian Twi. So I was sending messages to people in Nigeria with the wrong version of Twi until someone kindly corrected me. And I
Could
could
they
kind
still
of,
understand it?
yeah.
Or
So they could understand it, but it was apparently a very different dialect. So it was
got it.
one was Pidgin Twi, and then there's a different version, and yeah. So that was also good to know because I didn't realize that there were two different versions. I mean, it's called exactly the same language, but you also can be quite insulting if you're using the wrong version of Twi to the wrong
right.
national. So yeah,
Colloquialisms and
that
things
was
like that.
quite an interesting
Yeah.
experiment too.
Right.
Yeah, interesting times.
So, do you have any like sourcing tools or technology or automation that is particularly helpful in international work? And the reason, let me preface the reason that I'm asking that is because from the perspective of someone that is used to recruiting in their own language, be that the U.S. or wherever, and they're recruiting and sourcing in their own language, there's often a lack of awareness of the differences in technology when you cross borders. So, for
Yes.
example, I get asked a lot, Shally, what's your favorite ATS? or what's your favorite CRM or whatever. And I always have to ask about the international component, because there are some ATSs and CRMs that will not work in other countries for reasons like, for example, the language in
Mhm.
that country is right to left. Think about it.
Yep.
So if your
Yep.
application, your tool, your technology doesn't support right to left language, it's not going to work there.
Yep.
That's one thing. Another one is currency,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So dates, if your technology is used to using the, month, day, year, that's not, I don't know, what is it in South Africa? Is it month, day, year, or is it
No, so we're different. So we go day, month, year.
day, month, right? And that's more common. So
Yes.
little things like that, right? So is there any technology that you find that is very adept at handling multinational issues like currency, language, direction of language, characters, right? If it doesn't support the character set like Cyrillic, then your messages look like squares and circles,
Yeah.
So
No, exactly.
anyway, I'll let you answer the question.
So for me, it was actually super interesting. So my first sourcing conference in person was actually one in Hungary. Okay, so in Budapest, and I went over there and listened to all the speakers, went to all the breakouts, kind of was like a big sponge, and I just took all this information back home and thought, okay, just jotting down notes, and tried them all out here. And some of the things worked, some of the things didn't. I then went to a sourcing conference in the US, and a lot of the things that were mentioned there, over half, were very US centric. They only worked in the US. So for me, I think that that's a great question that you're asking people who are putting together these softwares and these tech stacks and all of those things. Because that is a really, really important question. For example, in the US, People, that website, prpl.com, doesn't work in South Africa. Doesn't seem to work anywhere else in the world. So it's all well and great to, have it and use it when you're in the US, but from a sourcing perspective, those are things that you need to work. So I'm not the world's biggest fundy on ATSs and CRMs, to be honest. It's not my forte.
It's okay, but whatever you would consider a tool.
But
a tool.
So
is a
from
tool,
me,
the
tools that I like to use, there's definitely certain tools that work better in different geographies. So I'm a massive fan of Amazing Hiring, Hire Easy, Seek Out, and they all work differently depending on the geography. But I don't think that there's any sourcing software that's really cracked everything from all of the tools and all of the different languages, all of the different ways of putting currencies, all the different ways of putting, dates, that would work absolutely everywhere. Because
that's a big ask.
I have to use, it's a huge ask. I have to use a combination of all three of those in order, depending on where I'm sourcing, and will determine where I get the best results.
So another thing, culturally,
yes.
you said you have 11 in South Africa alone. You have 11 official languages, right?
Yes.
And are there also, I don't want to get into the politics or anything, are there also different religions?
Yeah,
absolutely. Is that variety?
Yeah. There's also different cultural things that we need to be aware of.
Right.
So, for example, 11 different languages, but are often linked to 11 different cultural groups. And different cultural groups, some of them have animosity maybe towards another cultural group because of historical reasons. You need to greet someone from one cultural group differently to another person. So, as well as the fact that, Johannesburg is the most popular and booming city in Africa. And we have a lot of people from foreign neighboring countries here too, who also bring a new dimension to the workforce. So there's a lot that you've got to...
sensitivity is a big thing.
Yeah. A lot of things we need to take into account.
Where I was going with this is, I studied international business. That's my formal education, international business and nonverbal communication. I've always been a big fan of semiotics, and it's like my hobby, on the side. But even to someone that has spent basically their entire professional life constantly being curious about cultures and understanding and learning, and I know I don't know nearly enough about cultures, but I'm always very hungry to learn. And I'm 50 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in recruiting for 25 years, and I still get surprised.
Yeah.
About a year and a half, no, sorry, about 2 years ago, I was I was consulting with an organization that had operations in the Middle East and and Africa, and I wasn't aware of this. I was aware that there are different days of the week that start the week. In some
Yeah.
countries, Sunday is the beginning of the week. In other countries, Monday is the beginning of the week. And I was aware that there are some religious and cultural beliefs where Friday is the day of
Yeah.
rest or Saturday is the day of rest. Well, in this country, I was talking to the VP of HR. They don't have any day of rest because they operate in an environment where, because of the cultures that they serve, their staff, there are no single days where it's off for everybody. So they have people who work on Fridays but believe Saturday is the day off, people who
Yeah.
work on Saturdays as if it was a Friday and believe Sunday is the day off, and they have
Yeah.
people who work on Saturday and Sunday because to them Monday is the day off. And I was like, wow, I knew about Saturday and Sunday being different, right? Um,
Yeah.
Friday night, the Shabbat, and different traditions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was like, wow, so you're telling me basically that you essentially have to have coverage 7 days a week because the population expects you to be available 7 days a week. People expect to be able to take vacation or days off or not work. So it blew my mind that there is a place in the world or places in the world where
Yeah.
that even the
But
work week is not standard. I mean,
but I think that they were working to change that. I read something towards the beginning of the year that Dubai, one of the big places that used to start on a Sunday, so they would have Friday off for religious reasons. We're trying to
right,
change things. So because there's so many headquarters there, so many global headquarters, that they were more in line with having a Monday to Friday week as opposed to a Sunday to Thursday week. But I don't
right.
know whether it was ever passed or whether it's happened or certain companies are doing it, or I don't know what the end result was.
Yeah. So imagine from a sourcing point of view, if you are,
Yeah.
reaching out to people on a Friday, which to you is a regular work day,
Mm.
and to them it's the hands-off holy day where they're not supposed to be working. Big faux pas, right? Now you're like reaching, hey, wait a minute, so it'd be like contacting somebody on a Sunday or whatever. There's
Well, I
cultural
actually
differences.
had a very interesting chat about that just recently. I've just picked up a new client who wants training in Saudi Arabia. So he emailed me on a Sunday morning, and I generally try and catch up with any admin on a Sunday morning. So when
It's
he
Monday
emailed
for
me on
them.
Sun exactly. So when he emailed me on Sunday morning, and I responded straight away with, "Oh yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. You've got the training approved. Let's jump on a call and put some dates in our diaries." He said to me, "Why are you working on a Sunday?" And I said, "Because I'm catching up on admin." And he said, "Oh, because today is our Monday."
Hmm.
So I said to him, "Great, but please, I don't want to be delivering any training on my Sunday and your Monday." And I said, "I'm sure
You
you
might
don't want to
have
be
to.
coming to train on the Friday." And so we had
Right.
a bit of a laugh about it. So we said, "No, no, no, we'll work on whatever works for us. We'll figure out where our weeks overlap."
Yep.
So it was a super
Exactly.
interesting conversation because he didn't expect me to answer him on a Sunday. So he was actually, then we
Trying to
actually jumped on the
adjust.
video
Right.
call, and he said to me, he said, actually, Sundays are great days for them because they're a global sourcing team and they get a lot of emails out on a Sunday, which people can pick up first thing in the office on
Yeah.
Monday. So they've
Right.
almost got the jump on the week before
But they're
anyone
contacting
else
people
does.
for whom Monday is the start of the week. So yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
interesting times.
Wow. Well, lots of talk about globalization and global sourcing and global cultures and everything.
So on that note, Shally, let me tell you what happens to me on a daily basis these days is that
Yeah.
companies all over the world will contact myself to say, do I know any tech talent through Africa? Like literally it's happening daily. Because I think that they are struggling to find tech talent in the territories where I'm getting
Candidates.
contacted from.
Talking
And
about
that's
candidates. Yeah.
candidates here. And that's companies in the US, companies in Europe. It's not just because they can find a cheaper workforce anymore. It's because I
They're
think that they
operating there.
realize that, they're not finding them in their home countries. And let's go and see where we can find these people, which for me is super interesting that Africa is kind of becoming a target, which is brilliant. It's been a long time coming, and it's good to see.
Well, that's good news. That's
Yeah,
yeah, it's still on my bucket list. So so
come on, you must do
Van,
it.
if you yeah, I was gonna say you know you're asking me to introduce you to conferences all over the world. Return the
Well, we
favor. Bring me to Joburg. It's definitely one of the places I haven't been to, and I've
no,
traveled quite a
it'd be
bit. It's on my
brilliant.
list.
We
Yeah.
need to actually talk to Phil. So I'm seeing Phil next month in Sydney. I'm going over to speak at Sourcing Summit in Sydney, Australia. And we were at one stage thinking about doing a, sourcing summit in Johannesburg. And I think it would be brilliant. I think we must just reignite those conversations now that COVID seems to be a bit of a non-entity at the moment, and we can
Getting
travel
better.
again. And
Yeah.
long may it last.
Yeah. Hey, I'd love to come out there. Love to
It'd be
do that.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you have any parting words for our audience today? We're wrapping up. We're a little bit over that. I went over by a few minutes. Hope you don't mind.
But it
So
was a good chat. So thank you for
thank
that.
you.
No, no,
Yeah,
no parting thoughts. Just get in touch with me. It'd be great to hear from you. Hit me up on my website, find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks for having me as a guest, Shally. I wish you all the best, and yeah, and good luck for the second half of the year.
that's right. Second half of the year. Yeah,
Yeah,
2022 is halfway done.
yeah, we're
That's
sliding
great.
down.
Well, thanks for coming,
Excellent.
Van. We'll talk to
Thanks,
you later.
Shally.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers, man. Bye. Bye.